Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. In last Friday's video, I had put together this mini diatom filter, and in the comments below, a number of people had mentioned that there must be an easier way of charging it. A better way than sticking this whole thing inside a larger container, adding the powder, waiting for the pump to process it through and coat the membrane, then of course after it's charged, getting it back out again without dislodging that powder on the membrane and of course getting it seated in the aquarium where it needs to be. So I put some thought into it, and this is the thing I came up with. Unfortunately, because of current situations, I don't have access to bushing that would fit what I want to do. So instead, I took, well, this is the arbor I made before, and it's 1 inch. It's a little too big in diameter for what I need to do, so I made a new one that's actually, believe it or not, only 7/8. It's only 1/8 of an inch thinner. But that diameter fits the outside of a standard PVC piping. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn down 3 discs of PVC. I just cut out a couple test pieces here just to make sure everything fits properly. And then I cut a couple more squares, these things here. And then I'm going to drill a center hole in those. I'm going to put them on the new arbor, which you can see is a lot less beefier than the other one, but PVC is really easy to turn down, and there's really no pressure on this at all. And I am using the 1/2 inch rod from the larger one, just putting it on. Like, there's just no way this is going to have any issues with breaking or anything. And I did make the fittings for it a little looser because, unlike acrylic, which requires a nice tight fit so the methane chloride can wick underneath, PVC cement is rather thick and pasty, and you need a gap there. So when you paint it on, you can slide it over, and there's enough of the cement underneath between the two fittings that it can actually do its job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn these down to round, but I'm going to do it in sequence. The one on the far right, I took a little bit more care when I was drilling through it, and it's a little bit better centered. So it'll end up being round before the others, and I want that to be the part where the acrylic cylinder is going to rest on. The other two are going to end up being the bushing aspect, the tighter fit. So I'm going to turn them down more. But what I'm going to do first, once I get this to a nice smooth finish, which I'm going to attempt to do now. It's a little bit difficult to do that with PVC, but again, this is something I want to test out and try to work with a little bit more. So I'm going to get this as clean as I can. It's a little early to worry about it because it's going to have to go back on the lathe again shortly. But I wanted to get like I said, get a little bit of practice in working with it. And then I'm going to take that piece off, and then I'm going to take the other two and put them back on here. And then I'm going to turn these down more, at least until they're round. Not really necessary at this point, but I want a bit of a gap so I can distinguish where one ends and the others begin. Just because it is going to end up being more important a little later on. You'll see as we progress here. This is the the problem with when you're machining PVC. You end up with all these long stringy bits, and they just tend to wind around on, well, in this case, the arbor and the head of the lathe, and you have to go around and take them all off. Not truly a major pain or anything. But it does, as you can see here, get in the way of seeing what you're doing. And in this particular case, it got so tight on there, I just couldn't get them off. So I did eventually get to where I needed to be. This is good enough for now. So I'm going to take them off of this, and I'm going to go through the messy process of welding these onto a piece of PVC piping. So the arbor, it worked really well. I mean, I wasn't unhappy with any aspect of it. I probably should have taken a little bit more care in a step coming up, and that has nothing to do with the arbor, of course. It has to do with, I wanted to make this fitting, this container that's going to sit on this, as easy to remove and put on as possible, because well, that's the whole point of this, right? I wanted it to be able to stick it on, charge it, pull it off, don't have to worry about any kind of friction fits, that sort of stuff. That way, like I said, it can be as easy as possible. And I think I went a little too far. You'll see when I start to run this what I mean by that. So that is obviously going to fit on in that order. And this is going to be vertical, of course, like this. So now I need to glue these in place or weld them, and then I'm going to turn them down so they fit on that bracket there. That's going to be the bottom piece for the acrylic cylinder. And because it is only an 1/8 of an inch greater in diameter than these pieces here have the hole through them, I am going to also turn that so I can increase the amount that it's the gap there, so that I don't have to turn these down too much. So these are just going to be glued together and allow that to dry. And as you can see, PVC glue is thick. It does its job. I mean, it gets there in the end. It's not as neat and clean as working with acrylic, but this is something I want to get in the habit of doing, simply because, like I said, it's not as easy to get pieces that I want anymore. So being able to make my own is a great asset. So there's that's the bottom piece for the cylinder. I've widened the hole there, and now I just need to turn this down. I left, like a little bit left on it, just so I can get a nice fit and also clean up all that glue off of there. And again, as you can see, the little gaps and whatnot there, I will probably in the future when I'm doing this turn those down so that they're a bit tighter of a fit, so I can avoid that look. But again, like, this is just me trying this stuff out, and I think it turns out pretty good in the end. So what I'm going to do now is dress up the edges and then turn those down, and then the only thing left to do, of course, after this is hook it up to the mini Diatom filter and charge it and get it to run. While I'm doing that, I'd like to take the time to thank you guys for leaving the comments. I mean, comments tend to lead towards new ways of doing things for me. I mean, as far as this mini Diatom filter goes, I probably would have left it as it was because it works, and I don't really need to use it that often, so I probably wouldn't have bothered trying to put together some easier way of charging it. But now that I have it, I can actually bring less equipment with me when I'm working on like a client's tank, and that's actually really beneficial. So like I said, thank you very much for that, and I really do like the fact that your ideas lead me in new directions for doing things. It's actually really quite important for that. I like to continually learn as I'm doing these things, and that really does help quite a bit. And as you can see, turning down PVC is really stringy. Obviously my favorite plastic to turn down is Delrin. It is a machinable plastic and is designed for this. But now that I've actually worked with PVC for a little bit, I really don't mind it too much. The only problem, of course, is I do have to turn the lathe off fairly regularly and do this. It's alright. Like I said, it's not that big a deal. And the only other interesting thing about it is if I want to get a nice finish by the end of this, I actually do have to take one other additional step that I don't normally do, and that is take a very fine sandpaper and just turn the lathe on and just gradually get rid of the rough edges that way. So here I took the rest of it down, and now it fits over nice. Like I said, just a little too loose, but I think, well, that's just my fault really. I mean, I was aiming for a bit looser than I probably should have, but then again, this is, like I said, just a test. So I've sanded it down now. As you can see, it's nice and smooth, and got rid of all the extras. I cut off the end because I don't really need that much on the top of this. I just need enough to put a fitting on so I can put the sponge on, and that's pretty much all it needs to be. So this is ready to sit in an aquarium and do its job. Now someone else asked for me to put in a clip of uncharging this, like after it's done its job, how I go about cleaning it. And I am going to do that. I mean, unfortunately, this video got put together a little late on Tuesday, so I didn't have enough time to let it do its whole job, and then, of course, add that to this video. So what I'll do is I'll include that in Sunday's vlog. So that'll, I mean, for you guys, I know not a lot of people are watching the Sunday vlog, and it's not because there's not really a lot of new material there. But I do an awful lot of updates, and I do try and take care of some of the things like this, where it's just a simple matter of showing you me cleaning a diatom filter, that sort of stuff. That sort of thing is usually reserved for that, and again, like I said, updates. So far, there's nothing different here. I mean, put it in an aquarium, turn it on, wait for all the air to get out of it. Now, putting this in is way easier. Unfortunately, a little too easy, but that's fine. I ended up, I'm not sure if I sneezed or jostled it or just, I don't know. In a few seconds, you're going to see what I mean here. I ended up just knocking it a little bit so that the cylinder lifted up a bit. I can get around that, of course, simply by lifting it slightly out of the water. Here I'm just bringing it up to the surface. Unfortunately, that means it still has a lot of buoyancy. But again, like I said, this is just the first test run. I'm going to try it out a little bit more, and then if I find it still a little tight, I now have the arbor, and that was the hardest part of making this. It is actually quite easy for me to put together a new one for this. So I'm going to just let this charge and fast forward. See, there you go. That's whatever I did there. It just ended up dislodging it, but that's okay. I want to include mistakes as well as the good stuff, so there you go. And if you do like this style of video, please like and or subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you think of this. In the end, it will all get filtered out here, and I will easily make another one that's tighter. I'm going to put a little sponge on that so that it doesn't end up sucking any fish in. And on Sunday, I will show this being cleaned for those of you who are interested in that. So there you go. It has done its job, or sorry, is going to do its job. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.